Pope Francis recently met with a female Anglican bishop as well as a Salesian theologian, a nun, at a meeting of his Council of Cardinals at the Vatican. The issue of a female diaconate was discussed, but where is this headed? Here with analysis is the Papal Posse, editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org, Robert Royal, and canon lawyer and priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father Gerald Murray. Thank you, gents, for being here. I want to start with this Salesian sister, this Linda Pocher. She said in an interview with a Spanish-language paper on February 8th the following: "We already know that the Pope is very much in favor of the female diaconate, but it is still something that we are trying to understand how to put into practice." Sister says Pope Francis is very much in favor of ordaining women deacons, regardless of his opinion. Father, on this matter, what does established canon law say, not to mention the magisterial teaching of the Church?
Well, in canon law, only men can be ordained to holy orders, diaconate, priesthood, and the episcopate. So it is not permitted, and the reason it's not permitted is because the Church has never done it. The Church has never thought she was capable of doing it. There is no history of female deacons receiving the sacrament of holy orders ever in the life of the Church. For this sister to say that we all know that the Pope wants to ordain women deacons, we don't know that at all. That's an assertion. I think, for me, that's part of the propaganda effort to say simply the Pope is going to do this. No, the Pope convened a commission in 2016. The results were never released, but apparently that commission did not endorse a female diaconate. Another commission was founded in 2020. We haven't heard any results from that, although a number of members of that commission have died. So right now it's in a modus of study, and I think these are efforts to kind of propel it along by claiming, well, it's already been decided, it's just we got to figure out how to do it. If this were done, this would mark a serious moment of heresy in the life of the Church, because you would have the Pope authorizing something that is impossible to happen, women being given the sacrament of holy orders. And if that happened, the Church would be splitting apart, because you'd have some bishops and do it and others wouldn't. And then if you in a diocese in which a woman was ordained a deacon, could that deacon go across boundaries to the next diocese and function as a deacon? She wouldn't even be recognized as a deacon. So this is very serious, and I really regret these basically political statements asserting things that are not known or not proven. And by the way, if there is a commission that's studying the matter, what's the status of their work? Because we already know there was the International Theological Commission in 2002 said there are no women deacons in church history. So I think this is a matter of grave seriousness.
Bob, this was a closed issue. You know, John Paul II had to deal with this. Benedict dealt with this. I mean, this was settled. My question is, as Father was just saying, if this is indeed something we don't know for sure, whether Pope Francis actually supports female deacons or not, but where is the Vatican clarifying it if he doesn't? This woman, this theologian, she got up there at a Vatican conference, coming out of a Vatican conference with a Council of Cardinals, and made this assertion. Where is the Vatican press operation if it isn't true? If it isn't true?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think I agree with almost everything Father said, but I don't know that this sister Linda Pocher is operating in a kind of freelance zone. I mean, she was chosen by the Holy Father to organize this meeting with women. She was the one who selected that Anglican female bishop to participate and speak to the Council of Cardinals. So, you know, as in so much in the past, I mean, we've already forgotten the way that the Holy Father used to say things privately to Eugenio Scalafuri, the famous Italian journalist. Apparently, at one point, at least, he said to Claudio Hollerich that he believed with Hollerich that the Church's teaching about homosexuality was incorrect. You know, there are things that I think he says in private, and we have so much of a history of this. I think we have to kind of presume that maybe this is true. Now, if it is true, there have been some instances. And it's not only in the pre-Bergoglio papacies. There have been some instances when he's spoken out and said that ordination is only for men. And that seems to be a strong statement. And some commentators have said, well, you know, sister must be mistaken about this. But I have to speculate, and this is only a speculation. It seems to me that he does want to raise the status of women in the church. He's said this, he's invited that the church should become less masculine. I actually think it should become more masculine, but that's a different question for a different day. Could it be that, like these blessings of irregular couples, what we might get is some status, some semi-official status for women that wouldn't be defined as the diaconate, but in fact would have some of the functions of being a deacon. And so we would actually get the reality without the title. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And it may be that that's the next step.
I want you to pick up on that because, I mean, Bob is right. Just last October, Pope Francis reaffirmed that ordaining women priests or deacons was impossible. But you know, his magisterium also said that blessing gay couples was impossible until they weren't. Where do you think this is headed? Might we be headed to some new classification of subdeacons that could include women in the way that blessings now can include everybody under the sun?
Well, that's not what the female ordination crowd wants, Raymond. So if the Pope gives it to them, it'll be a diversion from what they wish. No, by the way, the issue here is not women deacons. The issue is women priests.
Right.
But they know that this is the way they can get into it. Why is that? The sacrament of holy orders is one sacrament. There are not three sacraments. There are 3 degrees or levels of the sacrament, but it's only one sacrament. So as soon as you ordain, try to ordain, I should say better, attempt to ordain a woman a deacon, they're going to turn around and say, look, a woman has holy orders. Now she gets promoted to the 2nd and 3rd degree. What's the contradiction? Well, the answer is the church has never permitted it, and because the church judges that it can't. Remember that the diaconate was created by the Holy Spirit through the apostles. We believe that it's revealed teaching that the apostles, when they ordained the first deacons, were doing so under the influence of the Holy Spirit. The church has always understood herself bound by this. Deaconesses in the early church were not ordained deacons. They did not receive tonsure, the minor orders. There's no history of females serving as deacons in Mass or preaching, all this. This is all an attempt to use modern feminism as a new criteria for determining the meaning of revelation in church teaching. It has to be rejected. If it's accepted, there will be chaos in the church. Because as soon as you ordain or attempt to ordain a woman deacon, the next step is, why in justice can a male deacon be promoted to the priesthood and a female deacon can't? That's what they're going to say. It's a disaster. This has to be rejected.
Well, and again, here's the real problem. I mean, I would say this about almost everything we discuss every week for the last 10 years. It doesn't matter what people think or what people want. This is not the church of any individual or even of a pope. This is the church of Jesus Christ. That's what the Catholic Church has always taught. Now, either that's valid and true, or it is simply untrue. And if it isn't, we're going to go play golf on Sundays, guys. We'll get a night, we'll have a great time, and I'll meet you at the clubhouse. But this is very serious here. And I have to say, the visual of this began when we had female altar servers, because suddenly you had girls now aspiring to the altar or wanting to be near it. That raised the visual. And in Catholicism, the sensate, the done, the things that we do every day and every year, the rhythm of that is far more important than any stated doctrine, because people don't read doctrine. These people know what they're doing. And so I think a change is definitely in the offing, if not already underway. Jens, we have to move on to another ongoing controversy, and it's related. I mean, this Vatican directive on blessings in same-sex and divorced remarried couples, Fiducia Supplicans. Despite the Pope and Cardinal Fernandez granting carve-outs for the African Church, organized dissent all over the world is growing. Cardinal Mueller, the former Vatican doctrinal chief, was asked by our Ed Penton about why the directive was issued. He said this: there was no need for this document, but now the latter interpretations are relativizing themselves, and they are only deepening, widening the confusion. They cannot explain what the difference is between a liturgical and a private benediction, blessing. They are putting forward a nebulous connotation instead of saying what is absolutely clear in the gospel. Father, your thoughts on what seems to be increasing confusion as a result of this document?
Well, I want to praise the African hierarchy, and especially Cardinal Ambongo from Kinshasa, Zaire, because he has basically laid down the law and told the Holy Father, we are not accepting this in Africa. Now, the Pope has said that this is because of African cultural specificities, Not the case. I'm sorry, Holy Father. It's not because the Africans have some culture that rejects it. It's because the Africans believe in the gospel. And the gospel confirms any cultural resistance to accepting sodomy as a legitimate and blessed form of sexual activity. Now, let's look at it this way. If it's true that it's a good thing to bless homosexual couples, how could you give a carve-out? What are you saying to people? You're saying African bishops aren't going to do something that the Pope considers to be good? Well, in essence, what we have here is the Africans saying, it's not good, we're not going to do it, and the Pope says, well, I'll give you an exception. But how is it wrong for a priest, in Africa to say, I'm not going to bless you to a homosexual couple? Then he travels to France, England, or the U.S., and the bishop there says, you must bless homosexual couples. He'll say, no, wait a minute. It was wrong for me to do it at home. It's wrong for me to do it here. No, this is a major, serious crisis. I consider this to be like a point in the life of the Church where people are waking up and saying, look, the ordinary obedience that we owe to the Holy Father has now been tested because the Holy Father is asking us to do something that we know contradicts the gospel. Jesus Christ never would ever countenance blessing a homosexual relationship, and we can't do it as Catholic priests. This is wrong.
Bob, this also begs the other question that I've raised repeatedly, and Father alludes to there. It shatters the entire reason for Catholicism, the universal aspect that one teaching is licit, valid, and clear everywhere. That is disrupted by this document. Now the Pope himself has said, well, you don't have to do it here and you don't have to do it there. This is Protestantism, isn't it?
Yeah, this is really the culmination, Ray, of almost 10 years of an attempt to bless gays. One of the very first synods that I attended, and Father Murray and I were both there together, was in 2014, which was the first synod on the family. There were two of them. And at the interim report, the entire room, the entire press room was absolutely astonished when they read the interim report, and it said we have to recognize and value what's good in same-sex relationships. And in fact, it was so embarrassing that Cardinal Peter Erdo from Hungary, who was the president of that synod, I think that's the right term, he was the head of that synod, was leading a press conference when the statement came out, and they asked him, how can you justify this? And he pointed to Archbishop Bruno Forte and said, why don't you answer that? You're the one who put it in there. And he put it in there because the Holy Father wanted it. It's clear, as Father says, that this cannot be a culturally determined question. And it also is not, the Holy Father just said in the last week or so, it is also not hypocrisy for people to resist those blessings and then supposedly in the sort of straw man that he raised up, allow him to bless evil businessmen who are exploiting their. First of all, there's nobody who actually thinks those two things. It's okay for him to bless evil in businessmen and not to bless a gay couple. But it's not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy does not mean you can't live up to the Christian life. It means that, like, we're all sinners. And it's not hypocrisy to be a sinner. One of the reasons we're all in the church is because that truth leads us to God. It's hypocrisy to pretend in public something that in private you don't believe because you really would like it to change, but you might lose your position or influence or friendships or whatever. And so what we have here is, I think, clearly an effort in a kind of a indirect way to do something that contradicts the tradition that you're talking about without appearing to do so. You might call that hypocrisy in a way. But in any event, you're absolutely right that either it's a Catholic, which means universal church, the same everywhere in its essentials. There are different rites and there are different languages that the church operates in. But in its essentials, right, who God is, who man is, how we are to live our lives, those must be universal or we are no longer a Catholic church.
Wow. Also being reported this week, Father, over 90 prominent clergy and scholars have signed on to a February 2nd letter asking for the Pope to rescind Fiducia Supplicans. They write, never in the history of the Catholic Church has a document of the Roman magisterium experienced such a strong rejection. 20 episcopal conferences, dozens of individual prelates, and then even cardinals invested with the highest positions, such as Cardinal Mueller and Cardinal Sarah, have expressed an unequivocal condemnatory judgment. So have also the UK, US, and Australian confraternities of Catholic clergy. Father, the opposition is growing so fierce, but so far there is no reaction from the Vatican. Can the Pope and the Vatican just ignore this reaction forever?
It can be ignored in the sense that they won't answer press questions about it or even address the authors of that document. And that's most regrettable, because if there's ever a true form of a synodal spirit in the Church, it's when a group of Catholics come together and make a petition to the Pope and the bishops to pay attention to what they're thinking. You know, wasn't the premise of the synod and synodality that those who haven't been heard before, allegedly, in the Church need to be present in the room so they could tell the Pope and the bishops what they need to hear? Well, here's something coming. It wasn't by invitation only as the synod. This is the freedom of the children of God to speak, and the Pope should react to this. Now, sad to say, and this is where the word hypocrisy is quite clear, Cardinal Fernandez claims that we're blessing not the union but the couple. Complete double talk. No one buys it. And I think Bob's point is correct. They're trying to change the teaching of the Church about the immorality of homosexual activity, but not say so in public. Because think about what you're doing. A homosexual couple gets married in City Hall, then they call up their favorite priest and say, would you bless us? We're going to come by and, have our rings and all the rest. And the priest says, sure, why not? And then you say to yourself, well, what does a homosexual couple getting married in City Hall means? Number one, it means they're committing mortal sin, a promise to have sexual activity. And secondly, it means they reject Catholic doctrine that marriage is only between a man and a woman. So you do not deserve to have your relationship blessed when it's based on mortal sin and the rejection of Church teaching on the nature of the union of man and woman. That's what's going on here. They would do very well to listen. Now, it's great the Pope and Cardinal Fernandez listen to the African bishops, but I would say, Holy Father, there's a big line outside the Vatican waiting to be heard. Let those people also have a hearing.
Yeah, well, again, it's the discontinuity of all of this teaching, because you have a carve-out for, these gay couples. What happens if you walk up, say you're dating a woman on the side while you're married, and you walk up to the Vatican or walk up to a parish priest and say, hey, Father, can you bless my mistress and me? Well, no, we're not married. We're just living together, but bless it. Can you give us the blessing? This puts the priest and the Church in a very awkward and awful position. And as you say, either there's a hierarchy of good in relationships, marriage being the preeminent, or there isn't. And that's what really, I think, is at stake here. Will the Pope, Bob, do you think, just stonewall everybody? I'll ask you what I asked Father. Writing us off as kind of a small group of rigid people? I mean, how long can he ignore a mass of cardinals and clergy opposing this teaching?
Well, I'm tempted to say rigid people have rights in the Church, too, since it's a synodal church, and we're all supposed to be listening to one another. Yeah, I have to say, I don't think that Pope Francis is the kind of guy who will withdraw a document like Fiducia Supplicans. I think he's known Cardinal Fernandez long enough that for whatever reasons, he kind of considers him of like mind with him theologically. So I don't think either that there's the likelihood that some have said that he ought to be himself removed from office of leading the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. I don't think either of those things is going to happen. I would hope that there'd be enough resistance, and there is, and not only in Africa. We've talked already about Hungary and Poland and other places, hundreds of priests in England, hundreds in Spain and elsewhere. I would hope, though, that at least practical resistance leads the Vatican to stay away from trying to justify this and promote it further, because as Cardinal Mueller has said, the more clarifications that they issue, the less clear things are. That the clarifications keep piling up, and yet we're more and more confused because there is no logical reason why they took this step other than that they wanted to affirm something about homosexual couples. It just makes no sense in any other terms.
Arising from the confusion and the dust being kicked up over this Fiducia document comes Jesuit Father James Martin, who has performed a blessing for two married men, in his words, one of whom is a personal friend. Martin even referred to one of the members of the couple here as a husband. Father, your reaction, and what's the implication here?
Yes, I read Father Martin's tweet, and he referred to one of the two homosexuals who were seeking a blessing as having the husband with him. Now, if Father Martin believes that a man can have a husband, he's denying Catholic teaching. That's wrong. That's the world of make-believe. The Church does not believe that two men who get a civil union or marriage are husband and husband. We don't believe that. And if Father Martin claims, well, that's just the civil reality, I'm reflecting that, we don't submit to Caesar as the ruler and determiner of truth. The man is not married to a husband. In fact, the man's not married at all. Civil marriage of two Catholics is a sinful act, and it reflects a rejection of Catholic doctrine and marriage. And I was thinking about it. Imagine if the civil government said that I could become a member of the Society of Jesus if Raymond Arroyo said I was. So I went to you, Raymond, and said, I'd like to swear vows to become a Jesuit. And the law permitted, and you said, go right ahead. Would Father Martin call me a Jesuit? I don't think so. The reality has to prevail here, not this false make-believe world in which we pretend that two men who go to a civil judge suddenly become husbands and are involved in some form of marriage. They're not.
Moving on, last month, Ed Penton reported that the doctrinal office led by Cardinal Fernandez is planning a very important document on human dignity. In an interview, Tucho Fernandez said the dicastery document would focus on, quote, moral questions such as sex change surgery, surrogacy, and gender ideology. Now, Bob, you wrote a column about this week titled Memo to Tucho. What do you expect to see from this document, given what we saw in Fiducia?
Well, I tried to be helpful since we're all in a synodal church, and even though I wasn't formally invited to comment on this proposed document, I thought I would put in my 2 cents ahead of time. And I'm worried a bit that this is going to focus on human dignity and social issues. And Cardinal Fernandez said that this will it'll put people's minds to ease who are uneasy about his past work. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. And my fear about this is that by using human dignity, we've already seen this, that naturally every Christian believes, and even people who are not Christian who've been brought up in Christian societies, that human life is sacred. We don't kill innocent people without reason. So you can affirm human dignity, and then, however, what is affirmed underneath that can be quite strange, because I think that the way that they justify to themselves this blessing of irregular couples is, well, all human beings have a certain dignity, all of us are children of God, we're all sinners. And you can kind of hide under that aspect of human dignity a lot of things that contradict the tradition of the church that we've been talking about this evening. So I'm worried about that for a bit, but I'm also worried that in larger terms, what is being left out of this concern about human dignity is the real threat to human dignity in our time. It's not capitalism, it's not the climate, it's not hard-heartedness toward these poor immigrants who are seeking a better life. Our problem is that there is an anti-human element taking place on the entire face of the earth. It's being pushed by a global elite that hates the family, hates Christianity, dislikes individual countries, and thinks that we ought to have a kind of a global government that is running things. All those things are what are producing what are being called populist movements in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, and elsewhere. And the reason that those populist movements are arising is people are feeling threatened in their workplaces, in their children's schools, when they're out in public. And that is the true human dignity that needs to be defended. The family, the individual, and national, or at least local communities. I fear that what we're going to get is actually the opposite of that under the rubric of protecting human dignity.
Mm-hmm. Father, the prefect said this new document would contain, quote, strong criticism of these social issues. Does the dicastery have any credibility left, given what's happening on all these other fronts? I mean, the Pope did just speak out against surrogacy and gender theory. He also denounced women's ordination in October, but it continues to be discussed. Is anyone listening, I guess, is the question.
Well, the same dicastery told us in December that transsexuals can be godparents. So a man who dresses as a woman can be a godmother. How are they going to remedy that in this upcoming document? Yes, the Pope has condemned gender ideology. On the other hand, when a group of transsexuals were brought to the Vatican, he then wrote a letter to one of the men posing as a woman, and he called her dear sister. So there's an inconsistency, both sides of the question. I hope Cardinal Fernandez is going to do something serious here, but it's very political to say to people, oh, don't think about what I just said. I'm going to tell you something you like next week. Look, I'm not here to be liked or disliked. I'm here to find the truth. And when the teaching of Cardinal Fernandez contradicts precisely the teaching we've been taught right up to the day Fernandez issued his document, don't try to distract me by saying, well, you'll like my next document, so don't be so hard on me. This is not how the Catholic Church operates.
This feels like a political reaction to a real big mess, where I know you didn't like that. It's like vaudeville, you ain't seen nothing yet, folks, and you bring out the next act. But before we run out of time, I have to ask you both about this new development in the ongoing war the Vatican seems to be waging against the traditional Latin Mass. It's been reported that the Vatican has told the Diocese of Austin, Texas, that it must stop the celebration of the TLM in its diocesan cathedral by March 19th. Bishop Joe Vasquez confirmed that he was instructed to discontinue the Mass by the Vatican. And Vasquez, by the way, is the bishop who was appointed to run the Diocese of Tyler, Texas, after they removed Bishop Strickland. Father, once again, we seem to see the Vatican welcoming and accompanying everyone except traditional Catholics. Why is the old right being treated like some wicked thing? And, it's envisioned that Pachamama worship would be more welcome than the ancient liturgy of the saints.
Well, a couple of things, Raymond. Number one, this undermines completely when the Pope says the church is for everyone. Todos, todos, todos in Spanish. That's what he said at the World Youth Day in Portugal this past summer. And that's what he said recently also in Rome. If the church is for everyone, why are Mass-going Catholics who are devout and practice the faith and educate their children in religion, why are they being thrown out of the churches that were built for the celebration of the Mass? Now, on a technicality, you can say the document, because Traditionis Custodes talked about parish churches. A cathedral is a different type of church. It's the church for the entire diocese. Why can't the Mass be celebrated there? This makes no sense. Now, just on let's say on the practical and spiritual aspect of what it means to be a Catholic, when in the world does a pope or bishops turn to a group of faithful and say, get out, we don't want you here? Your ancestors built this church, but you have no right to worship God here in the Mass they celebrated when they built the church. This is cruel. The Pope may have the power to do it, but it's a big mistake. And I'm surprised that Cardinal Roche is still pushing this line, because it's obvious. Spiritual cruelty is being exercised on a group of Catholics who do nothing more than simply want to worship God. If the Fraternity of St. Peter has a parish, they can go there, right? So it's not per se wrong. But if a diocesan bishop wants to have in his cathedral, now he's told you can't. This is really unjust.
Gentlemen, the final word on this will be pronounced by the young, who will outlive all of us, and they seem to be drawn to this tradition and hungering for this eternal Mass and this eternal way of worshiping God, which is really what this is all about. Gentlemen, we'll leave it there. For commentary by Robert Royal and Father Gerald Murray and regular podcasts, you can visit CatholicThing.org.